Isn't it great to be in a room with, I think, 200 odd amazing women? But how often do we think about how amazing we actually are? This session is about doing that. I loved the last session because she said, actually, get those wins, know what you do well each day. But I can tell you that what I think most people do when they leave the office and they're on their commute home is think about what is still on their to-do list. They think about what is still to do, what they didn't do right. I was in the meeting and I made that point. I'm not sure if it went down well. I did a presentation and I was asked a question and I don't know if I answered it correctly. Actually, was I wearing the right thing when I met that client? What we often do is focus on what we think are our weaknesses, what we need to improve, what we need to do better. And actually, our organizational cultures do that too, don't they? Yeah? When you have your appraisal, when you meet your boss, when you meet your colleagues, what are we talking about? What still needs to be done? How we can make things better? Now, I loved our first speaker, and she talked about innovation and development and adaptability, and I definitely am a work in progress. But we need to spend some of our time not just thinking about what we need to develop and grow, but actually what is present? What do we want to keep? What is amazing about us? And actually, the more we do that, the more our weaknesses minimize. So today, my session is about playing to your strengths. And there's some synergy between the speakers, isn't there? Because this actual image is a little bit similar to the first one, and I think you're going to find synergies and similar messages, but we're going to be delivering them a different way. And I think in order for them to land with you, we all have different personalities and different styles. So I'm an executive coach and an author, and I run a leadership training company. I also have a social enterprise that supports teenagers to inspire them to be leaders of the future. But I've had many times, even with so many accolades, when I haven't felt strong. I remember a time when I had my last job before I ran my own business, where I was introduced to the person whose job I was taking over. This woman was immaculate. I think she must have been related to Princess Diana. She was dressed like her, she looked like her, she had the amazing hair, she just had it all going on. And they said to me, "You're taking over from her." And I thought, oh, okay, I've got some big shoes to fill. And everyone told me how amazing she was, how fantastic she was, what a good job she did, how organized she was. And they were kind enough for her to give me a handover, so I had 3 days with her. That should have been a good thing, but it just made me feel so much worse. I was never going to measure up to this woman. When she actually left, of course, I started doing the job and doing my very best at the job. And about 6 months in, one of my colleagues said, "Actually, I thought no one could replace her, but you're different, and it's really good. There's so much new stuff that we've been able to do because you're here." And it hit me. I have my strengths. They definitely weren't the same strengths as her. And I'm sure she went on to do amazing things, but I had to maximize my strengths to be the best I could be. If I tried to be her, I was going to fail every time. And this thing about understanding your own unique qualities and your strengths is so important to be successful. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I have tried to be something else, it's been a flop. It's been a failure. People see through it. They see through that inauthenticity. They see that you're trying to fake it and be something else, and that it's not quite you. And they don't necessarily put their finger on it. They don't exactly know what it is, but it means that because of that, it's a bit of a barrier and a lack of connection that occurs. So if we can find our strengths, it's better for everyone else. The other reason why we should find our strengths is because if we don't find our strengths, people believe that we don't have any. Yeah? Actually, if you're not able to say, "I'm good at this, what I excel at is this, I'm really, what I bring to the table is this," then the other person who does do that is going to get all of the opportunities. If you start saying, "Oh, it wasn't me, it was the team," or "It wasn't really about me, it was my colleagues who made it all happen," eventually people will start believing you. They won't just think you're being humble and you're being modest and they're going to search around and find those skills. None of us have got time for that. You've all got busy lives. Yeah? They actually say we have a goldfish memory now. Our memory is less than goldfish. So if you did something a month ago, 2 months ago, even a week ago, I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to remember and then say, oh, let me grab you for that opportunity. You have to keep reminding me what your skills, what your qualities, what your strengths, what your attributes are. And to do that, you have to know what they are yourself. Yeah? So you have to get in touch with understanding what is great about you. So today, I'm going to help you think about some strategies to identify your hidden strengths and also think about the key to making those strengths work for you. I just want to ask you a question. I just want you to think about it for a second. At work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? Do you have that opportunity? I'd love a raising of hands. Who feels that they get the opportunity to do what they do best every day? Okay. Okay, right. So that's quite a small percentage of the room. And if your bosses were in this room, they'd all be absolutely gutted. Because if you're not doing what you do best every day, they are not actually getting their full potential and productivity from you. So part of this idea of playing to your strengths, it makes you more productive. It increases your performance. It means that you're better at your job. It means that your company gets the most from you and that you get the most opportunities. And sometimes we don't get to do our best, what we do best every day, because we don't know what our best is. Sometimes we don't get to do it because we haven't shared what it is with other people. And sometimes we're just not in the right place. You know, if you ask a fish to ride a bicycle, it's not going to be able to do it. Sometimes we are the right person in the wrong place. And that's not necessarily the wrong organization. It might be the wrong team. It might mean that you need to work with a different group of people. But it's important to start thinking about that. How can you have the opportunity to do what you do best every single day? And I'm telling you that it's possible. I'm telling you that it is really possible, but you have to know yourself to do it. I'm thinking about one of my coaching clients who came to me. And one of the things she said was, actually, she was a lawyer. And she said to me, I'm working with a group of people, and they're telling me I need to be different. They engage with the clients quickly. It's kind of a hit and run, is what they do with the clients. I'm more thoughtful, I'm more reflective, and I'm thinking about doing long-term business with them. But my boss has told me that I need to change. Can you help me? Was what she asked me to do. I immediately said no, because why should she need to change? What she needed to understand was actually the strengths in her approach and then be able to articulate them to her colleagues. So this idea of strength means that you never have to apologize for who you are, and I think that's really important for us. Now, this idea of strength has deep roots, because I think sometimes when you hear about this stuff, it sounds kind of soft and fluffy. It sounds like, yeah, a bit like that. You kind of think, yeah, sounds nice, doesn't it? Let's all work to our strengths. And if we do that, the world will be wonderful. But this is the real world, Jenny. And actually, maybe my boss doesn't really care about that stuff. It has very deep roots. And actually, Peter Drucker, who's a really big management and leadership thinker, in 1967, in his classic book, The Effective Executive, said, "The effective executive makes strengths productive. She knows that one cannot build on weaknesses. To achieve results, one has to use all the available strengths, the strengths of associates, the strengths of the superior, and one's own strengths. These strengths are the true opportunities." So knowing them is key. And you also might be familiar with Martin Seligman, the American founding father of positive psychology. And he suggested that psychologists needed to shift their focus from fixing broken people to identifying what's positive about individuals, organizations, and communities. So this really is not just something I made up and thought would be nice, and not something that doesn't work. It really does work and is important for you to start thinking about. Strengths are good because they energize us. When you're working from that strong place, you know that feeling. It's like, I'm so energized. I want to do more of this. I'm not exhausted. I feel resourceful. I can do more. They also aid personal growth because you want to learn. You're curious and you're engaged. And they lead you to being at your peak performance, which I think is what we all want to do daily. So what are your strengths? It can be difficult to think about and identify. And what's helpful is often getting feedback from other people. They can tell you what your strengths are, but you've got to ask them really good questions in order for them to do so. You might think of when you felt best in your job, when you felt really good about doing something, or when something has gone really well for you. Because what we reflect on are those failures, are those difficult times, but we don't spend enough time reflecting on, actually, that went really well. Why did it go well? How did it go well? You know, at the end of today, when Vanessa and the team are thinking about today, I hope that tomorrow morning, they actually sit down, no, not tomorrow morning, I hope they're sleeping tomorrow morning, on Tuesday morning, when they go back into the office, they start their conversation with, what went well? How can we do more of that? Because that's where our power lies. When they think about when they were in their strongest place and the difference that they made, and think about how to amplify and do more of that, they're going to have energy around that. And it minimizes any weaknesses that might be there. So those are some of the ways you can start to think about your strengths. But I want to do a little exercise in the moment. So I want you to think about what your top 3 strengths are. Think about what people say to you. Think about what you've said to yourself. Think about what your family and friends say are your skills and qualities. This is just a starter for 10. There may be lots of other words that you might use that are totally different. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes right now, and I want you just to think, what are my 3 strengths, okay? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I want you to write something down. Some people this is really, really hard for. Some people are just like, I don't know, I have no idea. Just write something down, even if it's a guess. I want you to start thinking about this, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do so. Some people don't have 3 things written down. Okay. Okay, those of you who are struggling, this is something that you really need to work on, okay? If you take one thing away from my talk today, you should have, if someone asks you, what are you strong at, you should be able to roll off the tongue 3 things that you are strong at. So I'm going to ask you to speak to somebody. I want you just to turn to someone and just to let them know, how are you using one of those strengths in your workplace at the moment? Just how it manifests itself. If you're motivational, maybe you motivate your team. If you're a great listener, perhaps your team really value that and it helps them to problem solve, okay? So I'm just gonna, it's a very laser quick conversation, just 30 seconds each way. Just how are you using one of your strengths at work right now? Share that with your partner. Great. How did that feel? How did it feel to share how you use your strengths at work? You're good. It feels good, doesn't it? Yeah? Too often we don't do it because we think we might be showing off, but it feels really good. And actually, did your partner look interested? Yeah? Yeah? Did anyone turn around and say, oh, who do you think you are? Did you get any of that? No? No? So all of that apprehension around, actually, why should I don't want to share my strengths in case people think I'm arrogant and I'm showing off. No, people want to know. And the more they know, the more they can use your opportunities. The more they can give you things to do that really play to your strengths. If you're not playing to your strengths right now, each day at work, how do people know that? How do people know what those strengths are so that they can maximize them? So the next question would be to ask yourself, how else could you use those strengths at work? The ones that you're currently using, could you use them in different ways? Could you extend them further? This is questions for you to hold in your mind. But the thing about strengths on their own, they're great and you should share them. But when you're working for an organization, you have to think about what difference does it make? Yeah, it's great that you're motivational, but what does that mean for the bottom line? Yeah, it's great that you have some technical expertise, but how is that bringing value to the organization? So once you've identified what your strengths are, you have to be obsessed with thinking about the value and the difference that they're going to make, because that's what your organization is most interested in. So here's an example. If I said, I'm a very focused person, okay? Actually, what difference does that make? Well, being focused to achieve so that I'm not distracted is a really good thing. It means I always meet my deadlines. Being focused on outcomes means that I'm going to hopefully help you surpass the needs of our stakeholders, okay? So you have to connect it in with the business and help your organization to know not just what your strengths are, but why they are valuable. A bit like the example I gave you with the lawyer, not just what her strengths are, but why they are valuable to the organization and the difference they make. And this requires you to do some thinking, but no one else is going to do this thinking for you. Okay? So spend some time doing it. What about weaknesses, I hear you say, okay? Because they still exist. They haven't completely disappeared. Well, what is a weakness? Sometimes a weakness is an overplayed strength. Perhaps I'm so focused on the detail that I miss the big picture. So be careful not to overplay your strengths. Sometimes my weakness is always going to be there, and I need to find a colleague, a partner, a group of people who are going to complement me and in order to really back up and bolster me around that weakness. I don't have to be everything, and I can't be everything. And be careful about trying to be a perfectionist. None of us are perfectionists, and that can really hold us back, trying to get everything right to the letter. It slows us down, it makes us very critical of ourselves, and it fuels imposter syndrome. It fuels that sense that we are not good enough. Yeah? So actually be careful. Is it really a weakness, or am I being uber critical? Am I being so critical of myself, holding myself up to standards that I wouldn't hold anyone else up to? So my top tips I'm going to leave you with. Do work on developing your strengths further. Do you think about what they are and then think about how you articulate them in terms of their value? Do think about how you can apply what your strengths are to your existing role. Do you think about, actually, what new things can I do with these amazing strengths that I already have? And cope with those weaknesses. Yeah, I'm not saying don't work on them if you want to, but don't let them become more important than your strengths. Think about what you can do to support yourself. And expand others' awareness of your strengths. Get better at talking about them. Remember this feeling in the room, how good you felt talking about your strengths and how interested people were to know what they are. So your action, and write this down, because you're not going to have time to do it now, think about one way that you will use your strengths next week. What's one way you will use your strengths next week? And put that into action and make it small and doable. If you're back to work on Tuesday, should be something that you can do first thing on Tuesday morning. Not something that you can do in 6 months or a year, something small and doable, because small actions are a catalyst for more actions. And when you complete something successfully, it breeds more success. So I have a few tools for you that you can use. There's a tool called the VIA Strengths Questionnaire. It's absolutely free of charge, and you can access it. There's a tool that's a bit like Myers-Briggs, which is a personality questionnaire, which again can help you find your strengths, and also some videos on building confidence and being better at promoting yourself. And lastly, I have an event coming up in just a few weeks, which is 2 days of focusing on your strength and your joy. I'd love to see you there. And also, just one offer for you. I have a program called the Happinista Project, an online program, which is all about understanding you, being grateful, working on yourself, and being the best you. And there's an offer to everyone here today. I'm on a stand, me and my colleague Naima today. Come and find us, have a chat. Let's build those strengths. Let's wow those organizations. Have an amazing day. And thank you so much to Vanessa for inviting me to speak today. Thank you.